Let's listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to share with you is going to completely transform how you see yourself and how the world sees you. I've spent years studying human psychology, watching patterns, observing the subtle differences between women who command respect and those who beg for it. And what I've discovered will shock you. The way high-value women communicate isn't just different, it's revolutionary. It's not about playing games or manipulation. It's about understanding a fundamental truth that most women never learn. Your words create your reality, and your communication style determines your worth in every interaction. Right now, as you're listening to this, there are women all over the world who are living the life you dream about. They're in relationships where they're cherished, respected, and prioritized. They're advancing in their careers faster than their peers. They're surrounded by people who value their time and energy. And the secret isn't their looks, their background, or their connections. The secret is how they speak, how they carry themselves in conversation, how they position themselves from the very first word they utter. I want you to think about the last conversation you had with someone you found attractive or impressive. How did you feel afterward? Did you walk away feeling empowered? Or did you replay the conversation wondering if you said the right thing? Did you feel like you showed up as your best self? Or did you feel like you were performing for their approval? The difference between these two experiences isn't luck or natural talent. It's a learnable skill that separates high-value women from everyone else. You see, most women have been programmed from childhood to be people pleasers. We've been taught to be agreeable, to make others comfortable, to smooth over conflict, and to put everyone else's needs before our own. We've been conditioned to believe that our value comes from how much we give, how accommodating we are, and how little trouble we cause. But here's what nobody tells you. This conditioning is keeping you trapped in a cycle of low-value interactions. High-value women understand something that took me years to learn. They understand that respect isn't given freely, it's earned through boundaries. They know that attention without investment is worthless. They recognize that their energy is their most precious resource, and they protect it fiercely. When a high-value woman speaks to a man, she's not trying to prove her worth. She already knows her worth. She's evaluating whether he's worthy of her time and energy. Think about this for a moment. When you meet someone new, what's your default mode? Are you immediately trying to show them how interesting, funny, or valuable you are? Are you working overtime to keep the conversation flowing, filling every silence, laughing a little too hard at their jokes? If you're nodding your head right now, you're operating from a place of scarcity. You're communicating that their approval is more important than your own self-respect. But high-value women operate from abundance. They understand that the right person will recognize their value without them having to perform for it. They speak with intention, not desperation. They ask questions that matter, not just to fill silence. They share their thoughts and opinions without apologizing for taking up space. They set the tone of the interaction instead of following someone else's lead. I remember watching a friend of mine at a networking event years ago. She was surrounded by successful men who were all competing for her attention. But she wasn't doing anything obvious to attract this attention. She wasn't dressed provocatively, she wasn't being overly charming, and she certainly wasn't agreeing with everything they said. In fact, she was doing the opposite. She was challenging their ideas, asking thoughtful questions, and occasionally excusing herself to speak with other people. She was demonstrating through her communication that her time was valuable, and that access to her was a privilege, not a right. That night changed my entire perspective on feminine power. I realized that high-value women don't chase validation, they create it. They don't beg for respect, they command it. And they do it all through the subtle art of communication. Every word they speak, every pause they take, every boundary they set is carefully calibrated to communicate their worth without ever having to state it directly. The first principle that high-value women understand is the power of selective attention. While most women give their full focus to anyone who shows interest in them, high-value women are discerning about where they direct their energy. When they engage in conversation, they're not just being polite or filling time. They're actively choosing to invest their attention, and that choice itself communicates value. When a high-value woman is introduced to someone, she doesn't immediately launch into eager conversation. She observes first. She notices how this person treats others, how they carry themselves, what energy they bring to the space. She's gathering information before deciding how much of herself to reveal. This isn't coldness or playing hard to get, it's intelligence. She understands that not everyone deserves access to her full personality, her thoughts, her time, or her energy. This selective attention extends to how she responds in conversation. She doesn't feel obligated to respond immediately to every comment or question. She takes moments to consider her words, to decide if the conversation is worth her engagement. This pause, this moment of consideration, communicates something powerful, that her thoughts have weight, that her words matter, and that she doesn't speak just to fill silence. Most women are terrified of silence in conversation. They've been conditioned to believe that their job is to keep things comfortable and flowing. So they chatter, they over-explain, they fill every pause with words. But high-value women understand that silence is a tool. It creates space for the other person to step up and contribute. It allows for deeper thinking. It prevents them from oversharing or saying things they might regret later. When you're comfortable with silence, you communicate confidence. You're showing that you don't need to perform for approval. You're demonstrating that you're content with yourself, that you don't need external validation to feel secure. This comfort with silence is magnetic because it's so rare. Most people are uncomfortable with quiet moments, so when they encounter someone who isn't, they're immediately intrigued. High-value women also master the art of strategic vulnerability. They understand the difference between oversharing and authentic connection. They know that sharing personal information too quickly or too deeply creates a false sense of intimacy that often backfires. Instead, they reveal themselves gradually, layer by layer, allowing trust to build naturally over time. When they do share personal information, it's intentional. They're not trauma dumping or seeking sympathy. They're not trying to create connection through shared pain or drama. Instead, they share their victories, their growth, their insights, their passions. They talk about what they're building in their lives, not what's broken. They focus on their future vision, not their past wounds. This approach to vulnerability serves multiple purposes. First, it attracts people who are also growth-oriented and emotionally healthy. Second, it positions them as someone who has overcome challenges rather than someone who is defined by them. Third, it creates intrigue without creating codependence. People are drawn to their strength and resilience, not their neediness or trauma. The language patterns of high-value women are distinctly different from those of women operating from scarcity. They don't use weak language qualifiers like maybe, sort of, I think, or if that makes sense after every statement. They don't apologize for having opinions or taking up space. They don't downplay their achievements or deflect compliments. They speak with certainty and conviction, even when discussing topics they're still learning about. Instead of saying, "I'm sorry, but I disagree," they say, "I see it differently." Instead of, "This might be wrong, but I think," they say, "My perspective is." Instead of "Sorry to bother you, but," they simply state what they need. These small changes in language patterns communicate confidence and self-respect. They show that the woman values her own thoughts and opinions enough to state them clearly. High-value women also understand the power of saying no without explanation or justification. When something doesn't align with their values, their schedule, or their goals, they decline politely but firmly. They don't provide elaborate excuses or apologies. They don't over-explain their reasoning or try to make the other person feel better about their decision. They simply say no and trust that their boundaries will be respected. This ability to say no without justification is revolutionary for most women. We've been taught that saying no is selfish, that we need to provide reasons for our decisions, that we're responsible for managing other people's emotions about our choices. But high-value women understand that explanations often sound like excuses, and excuses communicate that you're not confident in your decision. When you say no clearly and without justification, you communicate several things. You show that you have standards and boundaries. You demonstrate that you make decisions based on your own values rather than other people's expectations. You prove that you're not desperate for approval or acceptance, and you establish yourself as someone whose time and energy have value. The way high-value women handle compliments is also distinctively different. While many women deflect praise or downplay their achievements, high-value women receive compliments gracefully. They say thank you and move on. Don't argue with the person giving the compliment or try to convince them they're wrong. They don't immediately return a compliment to deflect attention from themselves. They simply accept the praise as information and continue the conversation. This graceful acceptance of compliments communicates self-respect and emotional maturity. It shows that they agree with a positive assessment, that they see their own value, and that praise doesn't make them uncomfortable because it aligns with their self-perception. This confidence is attractive because it's so rare to meet someone who truly appreciates themselves. High-value women also excel at asking powerful questions. Instead of making statements designed to impress or prove their worth, they ask questions that reveal character, values, and intentions. They're not trying to demonstrate how much they know or how interesting they are. They're genuinely curious about the person they're speaking with. And they use questions as tools for evaluation. These questions aren't surface-level small talk. They're designed to understand how someone thinks, what drives them, what they value, and how they treat others. Questions like, what's bringing you the most fulfillment in your life right now? Or what's something you're working on improving about yourself? Or how do you handle stress when things get challenging? These questions reveal character and create meaningful conversation. By asking powerful questions, high-value women accomplish several things simultaneously. They demonstrate genuine interest in understanding others, which is attractive. They gather important information about compatibility and character. They control the direction of the conversation without being dominating. And they position themselves as someone who values depth over superficial connection. The timing of their communication is also masterful. High-value women understand that availability doesn't equal interest, and they don't feel obligated to respond immediately to every message or request for their time. They respond when it's convenient for them, not when someone else demands their attention. This isn't game playing. It's respecting their own schedule and priorities. When they do respond, their messages have substance. They don't send throwaway responses or engage in meaningless back and forth. If they can't give a proper response at the moment, they'll wait until they can contribute meaningfully to the conversation. This approach communicates that they value quality over quantity in their interactions. Their phone usage reflects this same principle. They're not constantly checking messages or immediately responding to every notification. They have designated times for communication and they stick to those boundaries. This creates natural scarcity around their attention, which increases its perceived value. High-value women also master the art of ending conversations at their peak. They don't let interactions drag on until they become stale or awkward. When they've had a meaningful exchange, they know how to wrap it up gracefully while the energy is still positive. This leaves the other person wanting more and creates positive associations with their presence. This skill extends to all areas of their communication. They know when to end a phone call, when to excuse themselves from a gathering, when to stop texting for the evening. They understand that leaving people wanting more is far more powerful than exhausting their interest through over-availability. Their confidence in their own opinions and preferences is unwavering. When discussing topics they care about, they don't water down their positions to avoid conflict or to be more palatable. They state their views clearly and stand behind them even when others disagree. They're not argumentative or aggressive, but they're also not doormats who change their opinions based on social pressure. This intellectual confidence is incredibly attractive because it's so rare. Most people, especially women, have been conditioned to be agreeable and to avoid expressing strong opinions that might make others uncomfortable. But high-value women understand that having clear preferences and boundaries is essential for attracting compatible people and repelling those who aren't a good fit. When they disagree with someone, they do so respectfully, but directly. They don't passive-aggressively hint at their displeasure or try to manipulate the situation. To avoid confrontation, they address issues head-on with clear, honest communication. This directness builds trust and respect because people know exactly where they stand. Their body language supports their verbal communication perfectly. They maintain good posture, make appropriate eye contact, and use gestures that support their words rather than contradict them. They don't fidget, check their phone constantly, or display nervous habits that undermine their message. Their physical presence reinforces their verbal confidence. The way they handle interruptions is particularly telling. When someone interrupts them while they're speaking, they don't simply stop talking and defer to the other person. They pause, maintain eye contact, and when the interruption is finished, they calmly say something like, "As I was saying," and continue their thought. This simple action communicates that their words have value and that they won't be dismissed or overlooked. High-value women are also experts at redirecting conversations that don't serve them. If someone tries to engage them in gossip, negativity, or drama, they smoothly redirect the conversation to more positive topics. They don't lecture the other person about their behavior, but they also don't participate in conversations that drain their energy or compromise their values. This skill is particularly important when dealing with people who try to pull them into negative thinking patterns or toxic dynamics. Instead of getting sucked into the drama, they acknowledge the person's feelings without taking them on as their own responsibility. They might say something like, "That sounds challenging," and then redirect to solutions-focused thinking or simply change the subject. Their relationship with their own emotions is mature and healthy. They don't expect others to manage their feelings, and they don't take responsibility for managing other people's emotions. They express their feelings clearly when appropriate, but they don't use emotional manipulation or drama to get their needs met. They understand that healthy relationships are built on mutual respect and clear communication, not on emotional codependence. When they're upset or disappointed, they address the situation directly rather than hoping the other person will read their mind or pick up on subtle hints. They use I statements to express their feelings without blaming or attacking. They focus on specific behaviors rather than making character assassinations. And they're open to hearing the other person's perspective while maintaining their own boundaries. The way high-value women handle conflict is particularly impressive. They don't avoid difficult conversations, but they also don't seek out drama or confrontation. When issues arise, they address them promptly and directly. They focus on finding solutions rather than winning arguments. They're willing to admit when they're wrong, but they also don't accept blame for things that aren't their responsibility. During conflicts, they remain calm and rational. They don't resort to emotional manipulation, name-calling, or bringing up past grievances. They stick to the issue at hand and work toward resolution. This mature approach to conflict resolution builds trust and deepens relationships because it shows that they can handle difficult situations without becoming destructive or dramatic. Their expectations of others are clear and reasonable. They don't expect people to read their minds or to intuitively know what they need. They communicate their expectations clearly and give others the opportunity to meet them. But they also don't lower their standards or accept poor treatment to avoid being alone or to keep peace. When someone consistently fails to meet their clearly communicated expectations, they don't waste time trying to change them or hoping they'll improve. They accept the reality of the situation and make decisions based on what is, not what could be. This might mean ending relationships, setting stricter boundaries, or reducing their investment in certain people. High-value women understand that their energy is finite and precious. They're selective about who gets access to their time, attention, and emotional investment. They surround themselves with people who add value to their lives and distance themselves from those who drain their energy or bring negativity. This selective approach to relationships isn't about being judgmental or exclusive for its own sake. It's about recognizing that the people you spend time with significantly impact your mindset, your opportunities, and your overall quality of life. They choose to invest in relationships that are mutual, supportive, and growth-oriented. Their approach to dating and romantic relationships reflects these same principles. They don't date for entertainment or to fill time. They date with intention, looking for someone who aligns with their values and life goals. They don't settle for attention that isn't backed by genuine interest and investment. When someone shows interest in them, they don't immediately become available or drop their own priorities to accommodate them. They continue living their full lives and make space for the right person to join them, rather than reshaping their entire existence around someone else's schedule or preferences. They understand that healthy relationships are built on mutual effort and investment. They don't chase, convince, or try to prove their worth to someone who isn't already recognizing it. They attract people who are ready for the kind of mature, committed relationship they're seeking. Their communication in romantic relationships is direct and honest. They express their needs clearly without being demanding. They share their feelings without being manipulative. They ask for what they want without apologizing for having wants and needs. When dating someone new, they don't pretend to be someone they're not or hide aspects of their personality to be more appealing. They show up authentically from the beginning, understanding that the right person will appreciate their real self and the wrong person's rejection will actually be a blessing in disguise.